I'm hearing a lot about people talking about quitting reselling because of the new HMRC rules where they're going to get information from eBay, Vinted, Airbnb, etc. Don't. You have to keep going. And I'm going to tell you why. But I've also got a few orders going out, so we'll look at them as well. In fact, we'll look at a couple of them and then I'll start talking my nonsense. But anyway, what have we got first? We have got something that hasn't sold in ages, and I've got hundreds of them, but there we go. A bundle of James Patterson paperbacks. £11.94 for 5 paperbacks. I had these at a lower price and they weren't moving, so I put the price up and they've sold. That seems to be something to do with it's buy 3, get 2 free. So when they're at a low price, the 2 free don't look like that much of a deal. But you put the prices up slightly and suddenly the 2 free are a bigger discount, even though the overall price is slightly higher. To me it doesn't make sense, but changed that a couple of days ago and a bundle of 5 have gone out. So 5 James Patterson paperbacks for £11.94. Another bundle from an author who has been very popular lately, and I think I've only got a couple left, so I need to go hunting some more. Anne McCaffrey. So fantasy, dragon fantasy it seems. We've got The Survivors, Crystal Line, Acorna, The Unicorn Girl. It's a very cool but weird cover, that one. See it? Yeah. Anyway, and Lion's Pride. So the 4 of them, £13.09. So yeah, Anne McCaffrey, definitely worth picking up for a few pennies a time if you can find them. £13.79 for 3 Conor Golden hardcovers. I like Conor Golden. I'm not so keen on his newest Athens series, but the Genghis Khan books, the Caesar series, oh, they're absolutely brilliant, love them. But we've got Dunstan, Lion, and a first edition of Protector, so that one went for a couple of quid more, which means, if I say the total sale, £13.79. Now I've only got 8 orders going out today, so why should you not quit reselling? First, if all the wee resellers quit, then the bigger sellers find it much more easier to completely dominate the market and make it harder and harder for anyone who does decide to start reselling to get in on the action. Second, it's not that complicated, the whole tax business. You've got various options as to what you can do. First up, if you're buying stuff to sell, you're a business. You should register as a business no matter what. If you're buying stuff to sell and you're making, your revenue, i.e. your total sales, are less than £1,000 a year, then you're kind of wasting your time anyway. You're really not going to do much unless you have a wee splurge once a year to put a few £100 in your pocket for a holiday. But think about it, if you're having sales worth £1,000, eBay are going to be taking about 20% of that. Yeah, so you're down to £800. You're probably spending a good chunk on postage as well. So even if that's only like a handful of items that you're selling for that could be, say, anywhere from excuse me, £50 to £300 that you're spending on postage costs. So you might actually only be between £500 and £700 that you're taking away from that. Cost of goods. Remember, allowable expenses can all come off what you're going to pay tax wise, but just from the point of view of the cost of goods, maybe you spent £100 buying those goods, so you're making about £400. £400 over a year, it's like £30 a month. It's 35, £40 a month. It's just not worth it from the business point of view. So if you're round about that £1,000 mark, then do what you're doing, but you really don't want to be spending an awful lot of time at it, otherwise it's a waste of time. So what you really want to do is forget about that £1,000 revenue mark, that you're allowed to make before you have to declare it as a second income, and look at what you are actually going to make over the course of the year if you keep doing what you're doing, or if you want to scale it and make the business a wee bit bigger. So if you want to make an extra, let's say, a tenner a day, so £300 a month in profit, then that means that you're probably going to be doing between £600 and £1,000 business a month. £300 is enough to make a bit of a difference. You know, it pays for a car, it pays for a holiday, it pays off a chunk of the mortgage, whatever it might be, but that's an amount of money where if you're wanting to use it for something, then it's enough that it's going to do that, and that's going to take you well over the £1,000 mark. So embrace it and accept it, and just decide how you want to play it, how you want to progress with it. My preference, actually no, let's talk about the other options and then I'll go to my preference. You become a sole trader, which means that profits at the end of the year, you're going to pay about 20%. That's assuming that you stay under, within the bottom end tax threshold. So if you make £300 a month, £3,600 a year, then you're going to pay about £700-800 in tax off of that. So you're going to walk away with £2,900, £2,800, which again, it pays for the car, or it pays a bit of the mortgage, or it pays for the holiday, or the new kitchen, or those carpets you want, whatever it might be. But it is worth doing. The self-assessment at the end of the year, it's a fairly straightforward form. Throughout the year, use something like QuickBooks. That's what I use, and I use that for a company business, never mind a sole trader. But use something like QuickBooks to keep track of all your sales and expenses throughout the year. And then when it comes to the end of the year, it's a pretty straightforward form to fill in. Take a couple of hours out. Never took me that long when I was doing it, to be honest, but take out a couple of hours, fill in the form, ping it off, and then you'll get a bill back for what you're due on your tax and any additional national insurance and other bits and pieces. And you're likely to pay around about 20% tax for most people. The £1,000 limit obviously is tax free when you're doing it as a side hustle. If you don't have another job, say your partner works and you just do this to put some extra money towards the holidays, the cars, etc., then you've got your full taxable allowance before you pay tax. So that's what, $12,750 plus the 1,000 tax traders allowance. So you wouldn't pay any tax until you hit the £13,750 mark. So if you're making 20 grand a year from your side hustle, your business, then you're actually only going to get taxed on about £7,000 of that. So it saves you even more. If you've got a job and you're making 40 grand a year doing that, that's quite a nice income anyway, and you're making an additional £20,000, then that's potentially going to push you into another tax bracket. So that's where you might end up paying a higher amount of tax on your side hustle. But you still get the tax allowance up to, the 12,000, and then I think the next level is about 40,000, and then it goes up and up from there. But for the amount of effort it takes to keep your records, once a week, once a day, once a month, whatever suits you, update your accounts in QuickBook, it'll keep track of it, and when you get to the end of the year, QuickBooks or something similar, not sponsored obviously in any way, at the end of the year, then it's a few clicks and that information is presented for you, and you can get that submitted to HMRC and pay your tax bill. What I would always suggest is don't wait to the end of the year to see what you owe and then try and find the money to owe it. Every week or every month, take 20% of whatever your profit is and stick it aside. The way I used to do this was I would put it in an ISA, a tax-free ISA. So weekly is the ideal to get the best benefit from doing that. But even monthly, just take that 20% of your profit, stick it into an ISA, and then at the end of the year, you get your tax bill through. It'll take you a couple of weeks to get that money back out, and you can pay off the tax bill. And if you always put 20% aside, then you will be saving more than you need. So your ISA can build even off the back of that. And even if there's a wee downturn and it has a dip, you're always going to be covered. But it's a good way. I think it's a good way of protecting that money, putting it somewhere where you can't touch it quickly. It's not a case of, I've got it in a savings account, but I need £100, I'm going to transfer that into my main account and spend it. It's out the way. It takes you a couple of weeks to get access to it normally. So that's one way of doing it. Register as a sole trader. Get some sort of accountancy software, or if you're clever enough, build your own spreadsheet, keep track of things on there. Put aside that 20% every month from your profits. So bearing in mind, if you have, say, £1,000 sales in the month, take off your eBay fees, take off your postage costs, take off your cost of goods, and there's a few other allowances that you can get in there. So for example, if you're having to drive to pick stuff up or go to the post office or whatever it might be, there's different ways that you can deduct that. One of the accepted practices, I believe, and take nothing here for granted, always do your own checks, is you can claim back up to, I think, 42 pence per mile for travelling for business purposes. So if you're doing 10 miles a week, that's another £4 a week that is an allowable expense. Or it could simply be petrol costs, if that's the only reason that you're buying the petrol is to do that particular, or diesel, or electricity, depending on how you run your car. All of that is potentially an allowable expense. There are some other wee tweaks that you can make, like use of your home. You can get small deductions for what you use in your home, which will eat into that £1,000 total that you've made. So you make £1,000, your profit at the end of it might be £400, £500 a month, and that's what you would then consider as your taxable end year income. So if that, say £500, you stick £100 into some sort of savings to cover your tax at the end of the year, and the rest is for you to go in your pocket. So you can approach it that way. My preferred way of doing it, and I've done this a few different ways over the years, doing different things, is set up a company. Costs £13-14 to register a business, a limited company through HMRC. You go into the HMRC website, you don't need anybody to do it for you. You can do it direct. You need to pay that money every year. There's a wee bit more bookkeeping involved, but once you've done all of that, you can then get set up again using something like QuickBooks to treat yourself as an employee of that company. So instead of having to do a self-assessment at the end of the year, that becomes your second income. I mentioned this the other day when I was talking about it. So if you can see that you're comfortably making £500 a month profit, then that becomes your salary, your wage from that company, and you just pay yourself that amount every month throughout the year, which HMRC will then look at, work out your overall tax liability based on your main income and this and any other secondary incomes, and you'll pay your tax, income tax, you'll pay your stamp duty, and all of that will be taken care of and dealt with. At the end of the year, if you're a company or a corporation, then you pay between 19 and 25% tax on company profits. However, if you're a company and that's all money that's sitting in the business, it's much, much easier. So at the end of the year, you've paid your salary throughout the year. At the end of the year, there's a couple of £1,000 still sitting in balance. What do you do with that? You go out and you buy stock, you buy something, you use that money up before you get to the end of the year, and then you've got no tax to pay because you won't have any profit, or you'll have very, very little profit, so there'll be a minimal amount of tax to pay. The bookkeeping's a bit more complicated, but again, for relatively little, you can get support to get that completed. It also makes it much easier to register to pay VAT. So again, if you're wanting to make a reasonable amount of money on reselling, in fact, let's look at a sale before we talk about that. Agatha Christie, Murder in Mesopotamia, £7.64. Somebody from Italy bought that, and eBay are charging them 20 quid in postage, so I'm going to chuck in another one, just to make it worth their while. It seems bad. They did ask if I had any more in the series and said they couldn't find it in my shop, but I'm just going to send it to them anyway. It costs me 25p, no difference in postage or anything like that for me, so I'll send them that one on there. But £7.64 for Agatha Christie. And Another author that started selling recently, and from having loads, I've only got a couple left now. MJ Arledge, Allridge, I always call them Allridge, but it's Arledge. MJ Arledge, Truth or Dare, and All Fall Down. So if you register as a business, and you can do this as a sole trader as well, it doesn't really make a huge amount of difference, but you can get registered for VAT. If you want to make a decent income, as I was just saying, then the VAT threshold is about £86,000. So if you're trading more than 86 grand a year, you're going to have to pay VAT on your sales anyway. You can't get around that. £86,000, if you're working on the margins that a lot of people are, you're going to be making between 30 and 40% profit over the year. So say £30,000 is what you would be earning from that 86 grand maximum. So if you actually want to go out and earn a decent living and properly be able to scale a business and do anything, you're going to have to get registered for VAT. If you're selling general goods, then wait until you're getting near to that threshold, but allow up to 3 months to get that registration sorted out and through. HMRC have not been quick recently in getting these things done, so when you're getting near to that, get registered, and then it'll hopefully be through before you hit that mark, because eBay can and will stop you trading when you hit or get close to that VAT threshold, because that's one deal they've already got with HMRC, Il Governmente. So if you want to make a reasonable income from reselling, you're going to have to go down the VAT route, which means it's worthwhile, if that's your plan from the outset, considering your prices, including VAT right from the start, so that when you suddenly have to start paying it, you're not having to increase your prices by 20%, because that's a substantial bump. You know, if you've been selling something for 20 quid, suddenly you're going to have to sell it for 25 pounds, which could put you out of the competition. You know, if that item sells for 20 quid typically, if you suddenly have to start selling it for 25, it's not going to happen. So make sure that you've got that taken into account right at the outset when you're doing that. However, and again, I spoke about this the other day, if books are what you sell, or children's clothes, or have a look at the HMRC website and see which goods are tax VAT exempt, then get registered as early as possible, because you can claim that back on all the stuff that you pay VAT on, eBay fees, postage costs, etc. Which it's certainly not going to be substantial, but it does increase the profit margin on each item, because although you've paid out 5 quid selling an item, you'll get £1 of that back a wee bit down the line when you put your VAT return in. And again, if you use something like QuickBooks, it's incredibly easy to get that set up and do. So that's how I play it. I get a salary from the business every month, which is pretty small. I do my VAT return every quarter, and at the end of the year I make sure that if there's any profit sitting there, that I go out and I buy as much stock as possible, so that at the end of the year that the value is right low. It's never been much of an issue. It's pretty much hand to mouth, this business, so there's very little profit sitting there as such. It's just how it works. It would be nice for there to be so much profit that they take a huge chunk of tax, but we're far from that yet. So that's what you need to do, man. Don't quit reselling. If all the little guys quit, the big guys get more and more of what's available, and once they've got more and more of what's available, then they've scaled to such a size that, like Amazon for example, they can monopolise it very easily, because they can buy massive amounts, they're selling huge amounts, so instead of having to make £1 on every item, they can make 20p on every item, which destroys any chance anyone's got of ever being able to compete and get a leg up with them. If somebody's working at scale, there's all sorts of other benefits. You know, they'll get postage discounts, they're paying a lot less for the listing fees, because you know, if you've got more than 6,000 items a month that you're putting up there, then you're going to be on the top eBay reseller package, which means that you can do 100,000 items a month and it's not going to cost you any more, because all your listings are free after that point. So it really imbalances the playing field even more than it already is. So people keep buying, keep selling, just keep doing it. Take the hit on the tax. Just understand what that hit is going to be so that you can account for it in your day-to-day business, and do a wee bit of research to understand what you need to do to make sure that you're being compliant with all of that as you go along. If a few extra hours a year is too much hassle, then probably the whole reselling thing is too much hassle. But if you enjoy the thrill of the hunt, going out there, finding the good stuff, turning a profit on it, keep doing it. Pay your tax on that profit, whether it's through, being a limited company or a sole trader, and keep making money. Not sure what's behind the whole HMRC tying up with eBay and all these other companies. Certainly there's a lot of other areas where people dodge their taxes something awful, rather than somebody who goes out and sells their old Apple Mac computer for £1,200 and suddenly finds themselves being considered as a trader. That's not going to happen. Apologies to any taxi drivers out there, but the job I used to have, I know what a deal. You guys claiming that their income is £13,000 a year, yet they live in a £500,000 house, have 3 cars, and are complaining because they can't go on their 3rd holiday of the year. Yeah, whatever. Anyway, enough of that. There's plenty of places where the government can be chasing tax. This is just another thing to put a bit of fear into people to try and put you off the business. That's what I think. That is just my opinion, based on nothing other than what rattles about in here. But it's out there to try and put people off making additional income. There's much, much, much easier ways to make money than selling your time. And all the rich people, all the old schools, the old boys network, they all know it, and they all use it, and they all do it regularly. But they need everyone else to be selling their time for money so that they can keep making their profits. So I think this is a bit of a let's scare people out of doing that, so that rather than them going out and going to charity shops, going to car boot sale, making a few quid here and there, bringing it in, and going into their pockets, and you might make £10 an hour doing that one day. The next day you might make £200 for an hour. So you're getting away. You're no longer selling your time. You're just selling your knowledge and your experience and what you can do, and that can make you anything from a £5 an hour to £1,000 an hour, depending on how valuable your experience is in any given day. They don't want that. They want you in the office, in the shop, in the factory, whatever it is, selling your time for a fixed rate so that they control that and keep making their profits off the end of it. If you work in let's say you're in some sort of manufacturing process, car mechanic, whatever it is, and when you start out, you're getting paid £20 an hour, and you're bringing into the business in that hour £100 worth of business. 5 years down the line, your pay's going up to £30 an hour. Fantastic. That's a good increase over that period in current times. But you're now bringing £500 an hour into that business. So the guys at the top are making 3-4 times as much and paying you a little bit more for the same thing. If you go away from that and you're working for yourself, as your productivity, your experience, your knowledge, all these things improve, then that extra productivity goes to you, not to the owner of the business. You get that improvement. The book selling is a good example of that. It takes me, say, an hour a day to pick, pack, post 20 orders. If I've got 25 orders, it only takes a few minutes more, because everything's in the one area. If I went and picked an order and brought it back and packaged it up and put the label on it and put it in the bag and then went and picked the next order, that's going to take a long time. But if I'm picking all my orders at once, then it doesn't take much longer to pick an extra 5, 10, 15, 20, 50 orders compared to kind of the base 20. When it comes to packaging and posting them, if you're doing it all in one go, then it doesn't take a huge amount of time longer to do extras, so you can get much, much more productive. Your knowledge will increase. You'll get more valuable items. All of these things will improve, and that goes to you and not to the guys upstairs who just like paying you for your time and taking the profit off the top. So we all need jobs. Everybody needs a job, so there's absolutely no harm in having a job where you are selling your time, but get these other things going or keep them going. And reselling's one of the great ways of doing that, so that you're no longer selling your time. You're selling your knowledge, your experience, your enthusiasm, your passion, whatever it is. These are the things that you're then selling, which can be worth a whole lot more than a basic hourly rate. And I don't know, I had a pretty good job working for the government, but it was still only 20 quid an hour. You know, when you took it across the whole thing, £100 a day, 365 days a year, £46,000 a year. It's quite a good job. It's a fairly high position. I did have slightly better jobs in that time, but that was my kind of basic rate, which was all right. But it was never. I'm on my own here, just me and the boy. It's never going to let me get a mortgage. It's never going to let me buy a new car. It's not going to let me go on holiday. It's not going to do any of these things. It's just enough to keep you at the bottom of the rut. So get rid of that. Take control of your destiny. Don't quit reselling. Keep going, no matter what. Anyway, let's have a look at an order. Only got a couple more to show you, to be perfectly honest. Mohader, 3 paperbacks. Again, I've only got a couple of these left now. I haven't been outsourcing for a couple of weeks just because of the holiday period and everything, but I'm going to go out this weekend and see what I can find. £9.89 for 3 Mohader paperbacks. I love Mohader. I love selling Mohader because I think she's so good that everyone else should think so as well. And the last one for the day, Die Last by Tony Parsons. Nice wee hardcover. I've got a few of these. They never seem to do anything. £5.94. So I had a load. They weren't selling, so I just put the price down on them to see if I can get them out the door and free up some space, and there one has sold, so £5.94 for that. So total sales over that period, £90, a third to eBay, a third in the post, so I made about 30 quid profit. Not a lot of money, so all that prattling that I've done is not a lot of money, but I do want to continue to scale this business. I've run out of space, I'll be perfectly honest. I don't have a lot of space left, so I can't increase the stock I've got much more than what I've got until I can find an alternative storage solution. But I'm looking into that, and I will continue to just keep buying stuff, and even if it just sits in boxes and bags in the corner until I've got the space to process it and get it out, I will do that. Because if you go out and pick up a couple of hundred books, there'll be a couple of bangers in there that you can just get listed straight away that will over time increase your overall sales value. Anyway, enough prattling. Don't quit reselling. Keep doing it. Do your research. Work out what you need to do for the tax piece. It's really not that difficult. There's lots of information out there. Watch other YouTube videos on how different people do different things, but keep it going. Keep it going. Do not let them push you back into pain. Being paid for your time. In fact, this is something I'm guilty of as well. When you're doing reselling, do not go down the route of saying, what is my hourly rate, right? Forget that. If you have the spare time to do it, your hourly rate is irrelevant. If you've got 10 hours a week that you can spend doing the reselling stuff, the hourly rate is irrelevant. You might make £10 doing that, you might make £1,000 doing that. Do not break it down into what an hourly rate would be there. So, I've only made £1 an hour. I've only made £100 an hour. Some days you will make nothing. Other days you will make a lot, but you will be able to keep increasing how much you can make in that fixed amount of time. And if it gets to the point where you no longer have enough time, but you could keep making more money, then that's where you get somebody to help you. So you can continue to say your 10 hours are used sourcing, listing, picking and packing, going to the post office. If you can get a lot more stock, but you don't no longer have time to do all of those bits, then you get somebody to help you. So you can keep doing the sourcing and maybe the listing, but you've got somebody else picking and packing for you. You know, they can come in and help out with that piece. Or maybe you're just doing the sourcing and you get somebody else and they can list for you and do the picking and the packing. So there's always a way to balance that. And if it gets to the point where you're making so much money that your other job becomes irrelevant, then you've got 40, 60, 80 hours a week that you can spend focusing on that to increase how much money you can make over the course of a year. And if that means handing money out to other people to help you make more money, then you do it. If you can spend 10 hours a week and make £100, all for you, then fine, make £100. If you, and that's you saying doing 10 sales. If you can do 100 sales but still only spend 10 hours on it and make £500 instead of £100, that's much, much better. Your profits aren't in your pocket are not as high because you're having to pay people to help you, and you'll be paying more tax and you'll be paying all of these things. But overall, you're still only putting in the same amount of effort and you will make an awful lot more money. So don't think about, oh, what is my hourly rate? Just think about how much money you can potentially make with the time you have available. And you'll be amazed that once you start doing all the wee sums and working things out, that if you scale it properly, that 10 hours could make you £100. That 10 hours could make you £1,000, 10,000. It just depends what it is that you're going to do and how you're going to do it. And ideally, if you're doing anything, because I'm rambling on today, if you're doing anything for a business, it has to be something that actually doesn't need you there. Otherwise, it's just a job. So it needs to be something that you could bring somebody in and they could run it for you and you would still make a profit off the back of it. So for example, if I was to take the business that I have at the moment, which needs say a couple of hours a day, probably over the course of the week, certainly no more than that, then I would need to employ somebody for say 16 hours, 2 full days, and pay them £15 an hour. So 16 hours at £15 an hour, what's that going to be? £300? Yeah, something like that. So as long as I can be making more than £300 a week in profit from that business, I'm going to make money for doing nothing. Even if it's only £20, then that's £20 that you get for doing nothing. That's a business, not me putting in my hours and selling my hours to myself for what I do. It's enough. I'm blabbering on. Anyway, I hope that some of this has been helpful, informative, encouraging. Please keep reselling. Beyond that, love you. See ya. Bye.